Hello and welcome to the First Crack preview show, and we are previewing round 24. Can you believe we have got here? 9 doesn't go into 8, and gradually the weekend will build to what could be an amazing crescendo on Sunday. Or then again, the last game could actually be a dead rubber, but we don't expect that because the season's been extraordinary, hasn't it?
It has. It's been one of the great seasons. It really enjoyed it. It's taken a long time to get to round 24, Hardo. We're feeling it, but we're finally here, and I can't wait for the weekend to start.
At round 24, I'm starting to think round 0 was a bad idea. It's been a long year, but we're here. It's entertained us all year, and what a way to finish it.
What about the anxiety of it all for the players and the coaches just waiting and, you know, not knowing what's going to happen in the other games even before they set out there?
Yeah, it's tough because, especially for the last game, particularly Fremantle, if it gets to that, we'll be keeping an eye on the results of the other games, and then from there they'll have to play it out, and we'll be hopefully seeing a lot of live ladders coming up this weekend.
They won't care. The team that is filling those bottom couple of spots in the 8, they won't care how they get there. Whether they lose and get in or win by 10 goals and get in, you've just got to qualify. No matter which way you do it, you just got to find yourself a spot on the grid.
Just before we get into our first crack, the Bulldogs have named Tim English, which is probably the most stark selection news, as well as Carlton at this stage naming Charlie, but a bit to be played out there. But how significant is that, do you think, English to play against the Giants in Ballarat, where all roads seem to lead on Sunday?
Yeah, well, he's an important player, isn't he? And against Kieran Briggs, they need the 2 rucks. It was going to be an issue if Rory Lobb was going to have to try and do it one out again. So hopefully for the Dogs' sake, they do get him. He's a good player, Tim English.
So he's pulled up well from yesterday. At this stage, he's on track to play. We'll dig into that game, along with all the other crucial ones as we go. But Kingy, where are you going to start us off with your crack?
Well, I'm going with the ladder lies, and even at this stage, Hutto, because until we have equity, you're going to get this forever and a day. I understand that. But I think it's important to understand that we keep saying this is a small margin industry, and who you play and how many times you play them is really important. So the 6-6-6 bracketing, does it work, doesn't it work, you can argue. But these are the facts as they stand at the conclusion of round 23. That's how many times your team has played against top 8 teams this year. So you look at teams that are highlighted are in the 8 as we speak. So GWS have played 11 of those teams, they're in the 8. But look at those around them. Collingwood a dozen, Adelaide a dozen. So when we're critiquing these teams, you've got to bear this in mind, that they've had the tougher runs by comparison to those that are either just in or well entrenched inside the 8. So I look at Geelong at 10, Carlton at 10, so that's a pretty good number. But when you're comparing sides like Port Adelaide have played them 8 times, Brisbane have played them 8 times, Sydney, Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn 9 times, the gap between 9 and 12 is huge.
Yep.
Because you're talking about one, yeah, they're 50-50 games, aren't they, Joey?
Yeah.
So you're probably picking up one more win. You talk to Fremantle, they're picking up one more win now. How important that, you know, they've done the 10, you know, Brisbane have done the 8. I mean, they're big numbers, they're big sways in terms of advantage. And it also highlights, I can't stop looking at Essendon there. Only 8 times have they played the top 8 teams. And we say, well, what are we looking at? Is it a false economy? All the flowers we've been giving them the last few weeks, you know, are they really doing it against the best? So I think it's a reality check of sorts. It's never going to change. We're never going back to playing every team once, just through sheer finance, and we probably haven't got the length to go every team twice. So we're going to have to live with this. But it is real. It is real what we do with our fixture and the inequities involved.
And to back up what you said, when you looked at the ladder there, only 3 teams out of 18 have a winning record against the top 8 sides. So Port Adelaide 5-3, Sydney 6-3, and the Giants have gone 6-3. They're the only 3 teams in the competition with a winning record. So that's how important it is when you play those top 8 teams. It's hard to win.
It does add another layer to the argument around wildcards. Not the time probably to argue about it, but it does arguably make another stronger argument for that. Joey, what about you?
Well, let's get into the games, and the big one's going to be Sunday night. The final game of the round that probably we feel is going to shape the top 8, Fremantle and Port Adelaide. And it's going to be, for me, the crack is the midfield matchup between these 2 young superstar midfields that are both flying and in scintillating form. And in particular, I'm going to put the heat on the Freo trio because they have been outstanding all season. But they have to carry the load one more time to try and get their side into the final. So no Pearce, no Darcy, no Josh Tracy again. It is going to be up to this midfield trio to try and outpoint the superstars from Port Adelaide. So when you just take a look at the 2, that's the average of the 3 of each group. So when you think about Young, Brayshaw, Sarong, their play ratings 15.5. That's elite for the competition, averaging 27 disposals, 7 score involvements. You can see the numbers there. The scoreboard is either one of the players kicking goals or directly assisting. So they contribute 4 goals directly themselves per game. and you can see the Port Adelaide numbers on the right and the impact of those players. These three, make no mistake, are the heart and soul of their teams, and it's going to have a massive bearing on the game. And for Port Adelaide, as great as those three young boys have been, they have to do it one more time and try and get this Freo side that only a month ago was sitting third on the ladder and probably the second seed. Otherwise, it's going to be an opportunity that's gone missing for the Dockers.
How do you feel it will play out? Who have you got more faith in to be able to deliver?
Well, I think if it's a live game for Fremantle and one of the three teams, either Hawthorn, Carlton or the Western Bulldogs, have lost, I think at home, and the form they're in, like that's the thing about Freo losing the last three games, they've been in good form. They let the Geelong game slip. They played really well against the Giants. In the Essendon one, they were terrific for 3 quarters until they blew it in that last quarter. So I think Fremantle at home should get the chocolates.
I have a look at those Freo numbers and I think, how are they where they are?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, they've been really stiff with injuries late in the year, but they're coming with... If they can find a couple in the off-season, Joe, and we all think they will, next year could be a huge year for the Fremantle Dockers. It's very exciting, but how do you see it? Are you going to give the tick to the travelling team or the home?
I think the home team. I think those three at home, they are the heart and soul of the footy club. I think they can lift their team to a win. So they just need the opportunity. They need to have the game being live. They need the results to fall their way, and it sets up for a cracking Sunday night.
What about the Luke Jackson factor, given that Sean Darcy's still not there?
Yeah, this is a player that's been hard to place, I reckon, the last few weeks. And I just wonder what his position or his function is in this team. And, you know, his ball-winning impact has dropped right away. So they've found it hard to just trust him in at centre bounces. He's hardly going in there over the last half a dozen weeks. As a target forward of centre, they hardly kick it to him. So I wonder what his role is in this team. So there's the last 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whichever one you want to look at, the numbers are poor, right? So, but I'm looking at it and thinking, OK, they didn't really recruit him for round 15 or round 16 or round 17. They recruited him for when the season got serious. Sure, they'd love him to be, leading the Brownlow at this stage. Absolutely, you would. But these are the sorts of games where they need the big man to stand up. And I don't know what the role is, Joey. That's the coach's responsibility. Find a way to get him into the game, because that's not going to pay the bills. It really isn't. If you're talking about your 3 trump cards, he's the wild card, Joey. He's the one that could swing the game. So find the role, and then he has to deliver. This is a big game for Fremantle to make or miss the 8. It doesn't get any bigger. And then you've got to go again in September. This is why they got him. This is when he needs to stand up.
What do you think his role is in this team at the moment?
Oh, I just love my best players around the footy.
Yep.
You know where the centre bounce is going to be. Put him there. And he may not win the tap, but he's in the action. He's around the footy.